very happy to be here. My background is in IT implementation. I've been in IT for 27 years, from the time that the World Wide Web started, through software as a service and internet as a service, and all of these things that were identified as new and exciting and difficult to implement at the time. Here's another new technology, but this one is really exciting because it's just moving very quickly. So with that, I'd like to go ahead and get started. Everybody good with that? I'll let you respond to Shiva in the chat. And if you have any questions, please just throw them in there. And then Shiva, if you can shout them out to me as I go through this, that'd be great.
Yeah, you got it.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I'm going to start with some very basic things just to make sure that we're all level set. AI is thrown around a lot, right? But what really most people are engaging with is generative AI. So artificial or AI is artificial intelligence, right? Which is machine simulating human intelligence, versus generative AI, which is a type of artificial intelligence that results in new data or new output, right? It uses algorithms and programming, mapping to big data sets with an algorithm laid over that in order to produce new content. So if you really want to be savvy, you can refer to it as Gen AI. But if you do that, it's sort of, that's kind of a little bit of a, makes you a little bit more of an expert because it is that category of AI. This is another question I get a lot. ChatGTP, what does the GTP stand for, right? And it stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So generative, I think, is pretty self-explanatory. The tools that we will be using will be generating new content, right? And it's pre-trained. That's the algorithm piece. Basically, that data set has been trained in a particular way to produce a transformed outcome. This is the reason why they used GTP. The guys who put it together, clearly not marketing people, right? They did a great job of explaining what it was, but they were probably developers. But that's basically what it means. And the chat, obviously, is the format in which we're engaging these primary tools. So that's where that came from. More recently, one of the questions that I keep getting is, what does LLM stand for? So those of us who use these tools all the time will say, hey, what LLM are you working with, right? And that represents large language model. That's the abbreviation for that. And those are the tools that you've heard of, the different chat bots or the chat tools, which might be ChatGTP, Claude, that's one of the ones we'll be using today, Grok, which is Twitter or X's version of it, Llama is Facebook's version of it, right? There's actually several dozen versions of these, more hundreds if you go down into the not just text-based, but image-based and some of those others. So there are many of these. They are using large data sets. They're being trained on large data sets, and that's where you get large language model from. All right. So kind of moving into this process, I just want to give some construct around it. Often I'm asked, how do I get a better output? I'm using this tool and it seems really generic, right? We're probably all reading a variety of different posts on the internet. And I don't know about you, but I'm pretty used to the tool at this point, and you can really tell when it's somebody's used some sort of AI with it right at the moment. It sounds really generic. It sounds canned a bit, like a TV commercial. And so what that really is representing is that you've got an algorithm, or that LLM that we were talking about, times what that input is to create what the output is. So the elements that we're talking about here is the large language model or the tool that you're using with your prompt, right? to produce a particular answer. So most folks, we don't have a lot of control over those big organizations that are developing the LLMs, right? I don't have $2 billion to go scrape the internet and to create an algorithm and pre-train it. Don't know about you. It may be possible in the future. But right at the moment, we don't have a lot of influence over the particular LLM. Where we do have influence, though, is in that prompt design. So this is the reason why prompt design or prompt engineering, whatever you want to call it, that's really where the influence is going to be in terms of your output. So I just want to make sure that people really understand, in order to get to a better output, it may not be, you won't be able to make significant changes to that LLM. It's in that prompt design. So that's why prompt design becomes so important in the utilization of the tools. Prompt engineering. So take a screenshot, write this down. Please don't crash your car. Well, if you're listening to it in your car. But later the presentation will be available. Amazon has an amazing, if you're the type of learner who wants to go learn more detail about prompt design, they have a site that you can log into, and it does a really nice description of what prompt engineering is. It identifies components of that prompt engineering, including persona, which is the identity of the creator, or perspective. We'll talk about that. The context that you really want to incorporate into your prompt designs, and then some of those output details, so parameters for the output. Really good tool, and interesting information if you're that type of geek that you need to dig in a little bit more. And let's talk about prompt engineering. So I've now taken about 157 courses on prompt design and LLMs. Those ones that you look at, Udemy, which is a learning platform, or even Google's representation, or even NVIDIA's representation. If you are struggling, even though you've taken those courses, and think, oh my gosh, I just don't understand what it is that these designers or developers are talking about, don't worry, you are not alone. These tools really were designed with development in mind, based on language. And the folks that designed these assumed that because it was written in our native language, that they'd be easy to use. Well, guess what? What we also discovered is that in order to do this, that you needed to have a fair degree of digital literacy as well as general literacy. So if you did really great in English, this will probably come easier because it's structured in an English language, or whatever your native language may be, in that format. If, however, English was not a strong point, this might be more of a struggle for you. And that's okay. There's a reason why Google is trying to spend $250 million on educating folks on the use of these tools. So don't feel bad if you're not getting it the first time, or the second time, or even 2 months into it. It's a bit of a process in order to use these tools. And what I condense some of this down to for folks is to be able to provide a structure for prompt engineering. Please don't buy a Udemy course with 2,200 prompts. You will never use the 2,200 prompts, and even trying to find the prompt that you would want would be of some difficulty, because then you're going to have to organize your prompts. It's much better to understand the context of what you're looking for and to be able to make adjustments. Just like you would write a letter, it's kind of that construct of, usually you'll start with "Dear somebody," right? And then some type of introduction, and then some explanation, and then some closure, right? That's got a structure. Well, prompt design and structure, or prompt engineering, also has a bit of a structure that I kind of ferreted out of this. The first element that's really important is persona. And persona is really perspective. So if you think about what the tool is doing, it has scraped all of that data from the internet with a particular algorithm. And when you start with persona, what you're actually looking for is perspective, or all of the possibilities out there of what somebody may be looking for or what you're going to be asking for. So a persona can be, you are a small business owner, you are a florist, you are a pizza restaurant owner, you are, persona can actually be anything, but it's the relative perspective of what you and your business are looking for. So I'm going to kind of pause here for a second. I just want to have people pop into the chat box if you can safely, and kind of throw out some ideas of, what would you think your persona would be? So maybe we can get a few of those in the chat box going. And I'm going to kind of pause here for just a minute and see if there's anybody who's willing to share their particular persona. So if you have a particular business, or if you're an entrepreneur and you're working on a project, what might that be?
All right, we got marketing consultant, travel agent, digital marketing
They just
agency.
see, right?
Yeah.
Great. Awesome. Those are great. Insurance agent, that's very good as well, right? So this is your perspective. When you pick one of those, such as travel agent or insurance agent, this is really a way to be able to filter that data set, right? The internet's a big data set. So when you start with persona and you say, I am a travel agent or I am an insurance agent, that's your first high level filter that you're trying to grab perspective from. Otherwise, if you skip that and you go straight into, hey, write me a post that talks about this, you're not going to get that perspective, right? And even if you go into OpenAI and you look at their prompt engineering suggestions, it actually has a fair section and description of why a persona is so important. So using those particular persona components will get you a better answer in the end, right? The other components that I like to incorporate into prompt structure includes, you don't have to do the name, necessarily the name of your business, but certainly the type and industry. And again, with the persona, with the particular business, because as an insurance agent, as an example, maybe you just are doing homeowners insurance, or maybe you're just doing vehicle insurance or travel insurance, right? It could be, that's kind of a niche or segment for the business. And then the larger industries, again, these are all filters that you're trying to take the entire internet and filter down as a part of your prompt structure. I'm hoping that this makes sense to folks. If you happen to be in front of your computer and type yes or no, and just let me know if my explanation is making sense. Okay. Thank you, Vicki. Thank you, Carolina. Is it helpful? Because oftentimes people don't talk about that. They just tell you what to type and not the reason why.
A
Okay. Very
resounding
good.
yes.
Right. Resounding yes. Right. Most people don't teach this stuff. They're like, just do this. And that's what makes it hard, because just kind of memorizing it, now you kind of have strong construct of, oh, this thing persona, it's a filter for what I'm trying to create as a part of my prompt structure, right? Then you're really focused on, typically, that either sells, it's an action, right? That either sells or enhances, or you're trying to convince somebody. We'll talk about some of those parameters. But if you sell a product or service, really be specific about that product or service. I mean, very, very specific. And then also, if you're trying to sell something to a particular target buyer or audience, again, specifics count. right, in this process. These are all very, very specific filters that you're taking the entire internet and you are looking for that data set that is specific to what you want to talk about. Those are some of the parameters. This is the simplistic version of it. The best prompt structure. So let me compare it to something you probably know. When you go to Google and you type into the Google prompt, typically most Google prompts are less than 9 words, right? We're like best travel places in, I don't know, Canada, right? Not very many words because the system is an indexing system. My website, aiadvisorsnetwork.com.
And
And
then
we'll
I
come
think
back
we'll
to
have
that.
like a QR code at the end, right?
We
To
will
link.
at the end of this. Yep, definitely talk through it. Um, so Google is an indexing system. Arguably now with advertising, right? It'll give you the ones that have paid the most, but it's an indexing system. That is not this, right? A really good prompt has at least 26 words. And one of the prompts I'm going to show you later has 102 words. There's kind of a reason for that because I'm including many of the variables in that get me into a very detailed response. Now that we've identified who you are, who and what you're trying to sell, and to who you're trying to sell it to, now the other component of the prompt is what kind of construct do you want to create for that output? There are actually many different types of outputs, right? So not only can you just get basic text, but you can have it write it in an article format or in a story format, or for some data, you could request to have it put into a table. You can request to have it put into a bulleted form, right? These are the outputs. So whatever that type of content is, right? Write me a type of content, Facebook post, LinkedIn post, a story, an article in a particular style of format. Or, hey, I want you to write me an article with a bulleted form, right? That's the style or format. And I'll give you some of these parameters on the next slide. So take a snapshot, screenshot, whatever you need to do. And then what kind of perspective or mood or voice do you want to be able to construct that in? So as a business professional, do you want to be argumentative? Do you want to be informative, right? Do you want to be happy? You can use if you like a particular presenter, Seth Godin, Simon Sinek, as an example, write it in the style of Simon Sinek. You can actually say that, and the system will go out and identify how Sinek puts his works together, and you can mirror that, right? So, perspective is a very powerful thing. One of the things that I've done sometimes is that you do it in a business format and then just to give creativity to it, to do it in the style of Ryan Reynolds, do it in the style of Captain Jack Sparrow. You'll get two very different wordings and perspectives as you come out of that. And last but not least, identify what your objective is. So you're trying to sell to somebody, or you're asking somebody to click a button, or you're asking somebody to fill out a form. These are all of what are the actions that you want somebody to take, right? So I'm going to kind of pause there. Those two pieces, if you have nothing else in your prompt structure, which is the definition of who you are and the output of what you want, those are the beginnings and the key elements for a basic prompt structure. So it's not as hard as you would think it would be, but if you don't have those two pieces, or if you're missing critical elements of that, you will get kind of some generic outputs, right?
And then I see Mike's hand raised. Mike,
Yes.
if you can put the question in the Q&A. Okay. The question again is, what is your website? This will be given at the end of the presentation. But do you guys have a live website right now? Tara?
Yeah, yes. It's in process. You're also welcome to go to www.nextstagestrategies.com. And that will give you the majority of the information kind of that what our agency does.
Gotcha. Cool.
All right. All right. So from the perspective of prompt engineering, that's your basic prompt structure. If you actually go through those 2,200 prompts, which I didn't go through all of those, but about 1,000, it follows a bit of this format. Some of them are good, some of them are not so great, but they're basically pre-filled in this format. And welcome to those prompt variables, right? So the type of content, like what I want to make sure of is that you have this structure, and then here's the fill in the blanks. So if any of you are old enough to remember Mad Libs, I am. It was a game that you would play at travel. It was a little book and it was a storyline. And it would have blanks and you would fill in the blanks. These would be the elements that you fill in the blanks. I think the other thing is my son said it was Cards Against Humanity is another version of that if you're younger. But basically, these would be some really good prompt variables to fill in. So I'm going to leave this up for a moment, but what your objectives to inform your client, to surprise your client. You're trying to define a particular activity, right?
And then we got a question in the chat that says, which tool do you recommend using to generate content using your recommended prompt? Vicky said that she has had success with Cohere.
Interesting. I have not used that. The two tools that I use frequently are, of course, ChatGPT and Claude. So I'm actually going to move my window over here. And hopefully you all can see that. This is my ChatGPT account. And so now I'm going to try. I've done this in a classroom. I haven't done this online, but Shiva's going to help me here. We're going to create a prompt. And I'm going to ask for input. If you guys can put that input into the chat box, that would be awesome. And we're going to create a prompt and see what the output is going to be. So first and foremost, I need to start with a persona. And if somebody would like to be able to type in what their persona is, we'll start with that.
Whoever's first.
Yeah. Right. I know, right? Who's ever willing to be the guinea pig in this process, right? I promise I won't break anything. Someone's got to be one, or we'll take one of the other ones previously.
Yeah, I was gonna say we could just oh, we got one entrepreneur for health tech.
For health tech.
I'm guessing how.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. You are an entrepreneur for a health tech firm. Health tech firm. Oh, it doesn't like it that way. Okay, health tech firm. What is your product or service now that you've jumped into the fray?
Dental health insurance. Yep.
Oh, oops, I can spell. Is there a particular the company is Primary Health? Okay. Healthcare firm called Primacy Health, which offers. See the structure? Can you see how I'm filling in those parameters in this process? This is kind of generally for the group, right? The role, the type of firm, the name of the firm, what their product is, And now, of course, who are we offering this to? Which is interesting. So, Vicky, I don't know if you have a particular market segment that you're going after or a particular buyer to
Oh,
dentists.
dentist.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Dentists. I'm going to say dentists and dental practices. Okay. What kind of do you want to do a Facebook post or a story or an article? Oh, it's dentists and brokers. Okay. Got it. This first.
And she said blog post from LinkedIn.
Okay.
And it's dental insurance brokers.
Oh, okay. Proper
Yeah.
dental insurance. Okay. Yes. No, that's good. That's awesome. Exactly. One word can make a difference. I'm telling you. Okay. Write me a LinkedIn blog post. And for the course of writing that particular post, what is your intent? Is your intent to inform them of particular benefits? Is it to convince them? Are we trying to get them to click on a link? What do you want them, like what do you want your prospect to do?
Let them know about new dental insurance options.
Okay, so it's a new startup. Okay. Write me a LinkedIn blog post that explains.
It says can save
Okay.
50% off insurance costs.
Okay. Uh, what would be a good word that informs them of a new dental insurance options that save them up to 50%.
And you might say can save employers up to 50%.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
50% on insurance costs. Okay, now these other components, can you see the structure of this now? Right? But it requires some critical thinking through this process to plug in the different parameters. If you had a particular niche for those dental insurance brokers, because there's big ones, there's small ones, etc., you could actually add all of those details in there. The In some cases, the longer the prompt or the more specific the prompt, the design and the output can be better. But this is a pretty good starting point. The components that I'm going to add to this are use a informative and compelling voice. Use a call to action to click on a link titled, right? That's the action that I want them to take on the back. All right. This is a pretty good one. I think I'm pretty good with that. So I'm going to go ahead and we're going to hit the button and hopefully OpenAI will do its magic. And then I also want to show you some of the differences between Open ChatGPT and Claude, just give you the differences between two LLMs. So here we go. Wow, it's giving you the key benefits as well. And why Primacy Health is great. It's done some of your marketing for you, right? Can you guys still see that? We understand how crucial it is for dental practices and dental insurance brokers to offer high quality benefits while managing costs. Yeah, pretty cool, huh? Right? So I will save this for you. And so if you want to save this later, I can do a cut and paste and share that through Shiva so that you've got that. But I would say to you, if you can do a screenshot of that actual prompt, that would work for you as well. Right? It's structure, right? As long as you understand the structure. Now, let me do the same thing, and I'm just going to do this for fun, right? In lieu of doing it in regular business tone, in a business professional tone, I want to take the same prompt, and this is pretty easy to do, right? I'm like, well, it wasn't quite right. I want to change the tone. So in this case, I'm going to change the voice. And I'm going to do it in the voice of Captain Jack Sparrow just to give you some really significant contrast. Use the voice of Captain Jack Sparrow. For those of you who don't know who Captain Jack Sparrow is, right?
He's the best hero ever.
He is the captain from oh my gosh, the uh
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Pirates of the Caribbean. Thank you. I could
I
see
got
the
you.
pride at Disney. I couldn't think of the name of it. But let me give you an example of using Captain Jack Sparrow so you can just see how one variable can change perspective, right? It starts off with ahoy, me hearties, right? Gather around dentists and dental practices, and you find insurance brokers, right?
Now that actually
Um,
might be a good LinkedIn post.
right, exactly. I've actually done some development using the voice of Ryan Reynolds because he's a bit snarky. Um, so Jonathan asked a good question. Is it important to copy the whole prompt when making an adjustment? My suggestion is when you make an adjustment, change one variable. Don't change multiple variables. So that's why it's easier to copy the whole prompt and then change the one variable and see what output you get. Because changing one thing, if you start to change multiple things where you're adding in more details of your prospective buyer, or if you're asking them to take more than one action, then you don't know which one of those variables made a change. And trying to get back to where you wanted to is a bit more difficult. Change one thing at a time. And I know that requires more time to be able to do that. But those of us that are in marketing understand the prospect that if you're doing marketing, it's all about testing and testing and testing in order to get the right thing. It's very rare, the first time you get a 100% hit as you go through this. So just I'm trying to give you that contrast. All I did was change the voice to something else, and then you can see the output is significantly different, right? It still goes. I like this part. What's in it for ye, you ask, right? Like the tone is funny. But it walks you through that. And why I trust Jack, right? We were doing it from his perspective. That's one of the tools. What I want to be able to now do is I'm going to bring over an alternative LLM. This is one that's called Claude. It is made by a company called Anthropic. It is a bit more SEO friendly. Chat GTP sometimes can be very business focused. You'll get kind of dry response to some things, whereas Claude, we can take the same prompt and see what the output is. So I'm going to go ahead. I think I have that same prompt that we had previously copied in, right? Use an informative and compelling voice. You can also, with Claude, if you have particular examples of how you want the output to be, you can attach them here. And Claude will actually go out and read those. So this is some of the advantages of Claude. Claude does a pretty good job of that. So let's go ahead and plug this in here and see what Claude has to come up with. Also, the interface is a little bit softer, a little bit easier to use. So let's see what it gets us. So this is interesting. It's giving me two particular components, right? Identifying for me what's going into the post. So what are the elements going into the post? So it's doing a description here, which is kind of nice, right? In addition to the actual post itself. This is kind of a new piece that Claude has started doing. Sometimes what you'll see is you'll see two versions and then you get to pick two versions. But you'll note here there's actually less words, right? It is more about the promotion of what Primacy Health is offering. And then a little bit of, hey, we've just launched, we can save employers up to 50%. Yes, that's right. Like it's a speaking to you approach as opposed to the other element, which was more ad copy, sort of talking to you as opposed to the engagement. Also, in addition, it's showing you hashtags and adding a number of hashtags that you can incorporate into your particular posts. So, same prompt, different LLM, and now you can see this is why it's important to sometimes utilize more than one tool. If you're happy with a particular tool, that's great. But you will see differences between the two. We often use two and then we kind of take the best of both and utilize that for some of the posting that we do and or some of the ads that we create because there's a bit of difference. Does that make sense to folks? Can you see the differences between the two? It's a different experience, right? And I just want to make sure that folks understand that. Use the one that works best for you, the one that you're most comfortable with. Okay, thank you, Jenny. You can really see, right? Test and learn, absolutely, Neil. Right, changing one element in that particular prompt. That's part of the marketing effort in this. And by and by, those of us who are marketers, think about the time that it takes you like when we write all that hand stuff out, right? Or we type it on our computer and then we revise and edit to get it just the way that we want it to do. The beauty of AI is that the revisions and the editing you can do so much quicker, right? You can change one element. It's the same thing as you were typing it and go, yeah, that line doesn't sound right. I want to redo that. That's why it's you can copy and paste it and change that one section to get to your different output. This is the really fun part. I really encourage folks to play with this. I had the opportunity to teach 4th and 5th graders. That's awesome, Caroline. I taught 4th and 5th graders, and they were completely fearless. Like they went in, they started like, I want to write a story about, whatever it may be. We wrote stories about giant chicken nuggets on unicorns in the desert, their choice. But literally I didn't have a computer when I grew up, but they literally, opened up their laptops, went to GTP and ChatGTP and just started playing with it. And you can't break anything in this, right? So I really encourage you to go through and test and get comfortable with, hey, this is the format of the type of prompt that I want to be able to utilize. And play with those different prompts, play with the elements in the prompts, and go ahead and work through that. That makes sense for everybody? Hopefully. All right, I'm gonna, as we get kind of here near on time. I am kind of watching time. I want to go back a bit to the presentation and just give you a few more um, resources so that as you go through this exercise, you're, not feeling overwhelmed, right? And it's a lot. I recognize that. Different types of posts or prompting. You can do, it's an example here. Again, this will be part of the presentation that you can go back and look at. You can do teaching moments or aha moments, right? If there's something about your business that you want to be able to share, you can ask the system to create a post regarding recent trends. Although right now it's pretty much about politics, so you might want to stay away from that. But there are some other trends often, and sometimes that will give you some more traction. You can also do question and answers, obviously, in some of your posts. Um, Argumentative or contrarian views, like please write me a contrarian view. So in this particular example, if we were talking about insurance, right? Maybe for some people, it's not only about cost, right? It might be about coverage for them. So that might be a contrarian view. So you might be able to put together a post related to a contrarian view. And then another version of this is creating a post for an ideal customer, right? And providing all of the details of that particular customer. And then when you do the write up, it will speak literally to each one of those details. Let me see one more thing here. This is an example, as I was talking about, if you're creating a campaign, you can do prompt engineering and do expansion. And this is an example of, hey, I'm a small business owner of a financial services company who provides services for retirees. Please write me all of these different things in one foul swoop. So if I'm trying to do a campaign for 5 days, you could ask it to write you a story or a LinkedIn post for 5 days on different subjects, and it will do it for 5 days. Now, when this first started, people were doing it for an entire year, and it actually slowed everything down on OpenAI. So they've now limited that to about a week or so. So you may not say, write me a LinkedIn post for 360 days. I suggest, 10 days, 7 days. It's probably much more informative anyway, but this is an example of being able to do this. One of the other things I also like to share are some of the apps and tools for campaigns. I think some of you probably are either using this or have seen, using Constant Contact if you have a mail list, MailChimp, HubSpot, GetResponse, Aweber. They've been around for a really long time. Some of the other newer tools in HubSpot or Klaviyo, they actually have the AI prompt integrated into it. So you could actually do the same thing inside of the tool. The tool that I happen to use for my CRM and for sending out mails, either texts or voicemail or emails, is Go High Level. And there's Twilio is the texting account that's attached to that. So these are some really good tools for folks. Again, for Facebook and Instagram posts, when you think about creating a post, you may think about more than just a post. Words, adding images, adding some type of video, doing a story, asking AI to create your output in a story or to create that output in a poll or a survey. And then, of course, memes and GIFs or GIFs, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Some of those memes are really funny, particularly around AI. I don't know. That's my jam. But for insurance, there's a lot of funny things that we could say about insurance, right? So those might be some of the things that you think about for posting as well. Right, Carolina. Oh yes, just don't even get us started on insurance, right? I'm going to include this as well as part of the presentation and not really go into too much detail here just because we've got some time. But when you're creating either ad variations for Facebook or Instagram, make sure that you incorporate, what the call to action is. If you've got an event or if you've got some activity happening, incorporate those details into it. And I will leave this here for you all to go through it. I also want to share our tools list. If you can take a screenshot or, on your phone, take a shot as well. These are some of the chat bots that we're working with, different versions of ChatGTP, Copilot, Claude, Llama, Grok, and Perplexity. These are all different types of chatbots. So we work with all of them depending on what it is that we're attempting to accomplish. There are other tools for text to video, design, voice, AI voice generation, social media posting, etc. So I will just keep all of these tools, up here for you guys to access those. Um, and important things to remember before we get to Q&A is really your output is only going to be as good as your prompt, right? That LLM, look, they're continuing to do training and updating on it, but that's going to remain the same for the most part. And then experiment, like give it a shot, change a variable. If you're, of course, unhappy with what your entire prompt is, start over, right? If you're struggling with, hey, I don't know all of the potential buying specifics of my particular buyer, you can ask ChatGTP, hey, I'm selling to this particular market. What would be the things that are important to them, right? And AI will tell you, based on that data that's available, what those important elements are, and then you can include those in your prompts, right? Um, and then, of course, changing one variable at a time. That's kind of the piece that I know folks get bound up in. They want to change so many things at the same time, but sometimes it's hard to see what was that one thing that made that output so amazing. So just changing one variable at a time. So with that, I'm going to pause for a second here, and Shiva, if there's any particular questions with our folks that are on tonight, happy to answer those kind of off as one-offs, right? And happy to take whatever the question may be. I don't know if I'll have a great answer for it, but if I don't, I'll ask. Probably ChatGTP.
I'll maybe ask a question while we're waiting for questions. In the prompt structure that you had where you said you are and then the persona, name of business and whatnot,
Yes.
are you able to also, because I feel like I personally got a lot of luck when I put I am and then I did like a variation of that structure. Is that also good, or do you think it's a little bit more better for the system if you say you are?
I am or you are won't matter,
Oh,
right?
okay, cool.
It's because what it's looking for is it's understanding what you're saying is here's my perspective. Hey AI, you are this person, right? Perspective. Or saying
Got it.
I am, it knows either one, right? It's sort
Okay.
of that gender neutral, but it's the persona, right? That's the filter that you're going after.
Got
It The only difference that I've seen is just in whether it's first, sometimes it'll be first person versus third person. That's the only difference. Certainly with outputs, please read the outputs to make sure that it's accurate. This is a tool actually that's based on probability, right, of all of the data on the internet. I hope you all know that all the data on the internet is not entirely
it.
accurate. So the data sets contain whatever was out on the internet. This is why some of these LLMs that are based, like Llama, that's based on Facebook data, it just really makes me wonder, what the output is, because the input was all of that data from Facebook primarily. That's kind of scary, right? Or Twitter, etc. Um, One day we'll all have our own personal LLM, which will be really scary. I don't know that I want to have data set. That's my data set, right? Um, but persona is one of those key elements. That's the first thing that it's looking for is perspective. So as a filter. Do we have any other questions potentially?
Don't see any others.
Oh,
Jenny's
thank
just
you.
said wonderful
Thank you,
course.
Jenny. Right. This is a different way of teaching this, I really think. It's been very successful in person, and it really helps people utilize the tools of understanding, how is it working? Why is it working that way? Why do I need to include these things? As opposed to just approaching it from a very generic standpoint. Um, it's, you know, some of the things we've actually done during the courses have been pretty amazing as well. I think the outputs from some of this, just even for primacy health, um, pretty good. Like pretty good starting point, right? For a LinkedIn post. Um, that's what I like to see. But again, because we built it the right way. You're all programmers, whether you knew it or not, like behind the scenes, right? Um, Yes, Vicky, it can be used. Just ask it to create a Facebook Messenger chat sequence, right? Or a chatbot website response sequence. Absolutely. Just in your sequence, though, make sure you identify how many you want in that particular sequence, right? So just don't say, hey, create me a sequence, create me a, 5 response sequence or a 7 response sequence or 10 or whatever that number is. Otherwise, sometimes it'll just either cut it short or it rambles, and you want it to be specific.
And then
But
Tara,
that's
you can also create probably a GPT model as well now, right? Where you can like integrate it into specific things
yes,
like
absolutely.
websites.
But that's more advanced course though.
Yeah. Sorry.
That's stuff that you and I are doing, right? Like we're agents and all that good kind of stuff. So for sure, for sure. Anything else? I will here. Let me get to um,
There
and
was
I'll
a
take this
question that was put that says from Vicky, what's the cutting edge recommendation for AI marketing?
cutting edge recommendation for what a tool. That's it's a bit generic for me.
I'm guessing it's a tool.
The specific tool because the marketing best practice for how to
Oh,
use it. So lots of different use case applications. That's really what you're talking about, right? Organizations are using it in different ways at this point. Most of it is with regard to social media for the most part. I know that sounds super boring, but that's the greatest use case right now. The second use case is for customer service, although arguably it's big organizations that are implementing this, multi-billion-dollar organizations that are implementing this. United Airlines, as an example, was one of the big ones, right? Um, it's interesting because some of those customer service processes are already broken anyway. Banks are working on implementation as well. So you contact a bank and the chatbot is just responding to you almost immediately. Those are the first because those are the lowest risk impacts. There are other organizations that are looking at the utilization of the tools in finance areas. um, Bloomberg did it for one of their sales and marketing organizations and basically eliminated the whole group. So, but for the most part, right, that's much higher risk. But for the most part, organizations, there's infrastructure issues with implementing this because it takes a lot of computing power. And there's also obviously cybersecurity considerations that they take for, please don't upload your tax return important documents to anything on any of the public models, right? Um, for the generation of text, etc., you're probably okay. But if you have concerns about, anything that is proprietary, I don't recommend uploading any of that. But it's mostly for ads and marketing, and customer service are the primary applications going in place right now. Good question.
Personally, I've used it a lot for keynotes and presentations and whatnot. It's really helped me
Yeah. Yep.
ideate and create some cool stuff.
Yes. I haven't found the best tool yet. They're still in development. I keep trying the ones that will create the PowerPoint for you. It does a fair job of the actual content, the words for the presentation, but I haven't found the slides and the content of the slides and some of that stuff. I've gotten some
Yeah.
crazy stuff back, or it's super generic or whatnot. So that's a space that we're looking, that I'm hoping gets further development, but it's really based on utilization. So one other item of note. So I'm just sharing up on my screen my contact information. As I mentioned previously, we're building a AI advisors network that will be launching in January. If you have any interest in terms of support for your business, we will be actually working with a gentleman from UNR, Mike Bendrup, because often the companies that are engaging us actually need support in the business setup and structure area, as they just get started. And so we needed to have that business advisor. So he will be participating as well. But we've got a really wonderful data scientist and develop a organization with background in education, marketing, Facebook advertising, like, just building a really great team to support small businesses. The QR code will take you to a very simple sign up sheet. I'm not going to be like spamming you. That's not the intent. But once we launch, we'll let you know, and we'll probably give you a bit of a discount for participating and joining one of these courses. So
Hey, Tara, there's a question that was put in the chat. It was, are these tools available in Spanish or other languages?
So this is interesting. You can type into ChatGPT in Spanish or into Claude in Spanish, and it will give you answers back in Spanish. So don't feel frustrated. Yes, absolutely. It will actually every language. So this is a bit scary, right? Every language that you can imagine across the internet has been integrated into these tools. If you ask it to do translation, not just into Spanish, but even into Japanese or even into Russian or even into Romanian, the translation tools are available. Now, I couldn't validate what those outputs are, right? So if that's your native language, you can use it that way. So it's pretty cool. It's pretty cool and available for sure. It's not an extra cost. It's already integrated into it. Yeah.
Yeah, I've been personally using it to learn like languages using the voice mode on
Mhm.
ChatGPT's like app. So I've been learning like languages or
Yeah.
relearning my native language, and it's been pretty accurate, scarily accurate.
Yes.
But
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
no.
Yeah, it's some pretty good stuff. So these are and the one thing for folks to keep in mind is this landscape is changing in terms of the players, and the tools. Literally, there's being new tools developed every day. So if you're planning on using a particular tool to help support your business, just make sure that they've been in business for longer than 6 months, right? There are tons of tools that are out there for social media posting or creating content. I just, advise folks, like, just because it's new and shiny, everything changes. And I absolutely expect that we'll see consolidation in the marketplace. We'll also see some regulation coming in the next year or so in terms of the usefulness of the tools. So um, that's really all that I had for tonight. And I want to thank everyone for jumping on and participating in the class and commenting. This has just been really great. My first one online. It's kind of fun because people are from everywhere. And also to Shiva for helping to coordinate this and being able to get this out and to share it to your community. And you'll have that posted. It'll be for free. The more that we can get the tools into the hands of entrepreneurs in our communities and across our country and across the world, to really make us productive. I think that's just something that's near and dear to my heart. That's why I do a crazy meetup once a month and get in front of complete strangers and make a fool of myself explaining this stuff. But I'm very passionate about it, and it's been really good. Folks are walking away with new knowledge, and that's great. That's amazing.
I personally have walked away with some knowledge, which as a longtime user of these tools, I never used Claude before, and I am probably going to use it a lot more now for
Try it
LinkedIn
out.
posts, marketing, stuff like that.
Yes.
So yeah, I want to give a big thanks again for coming out and teaching this class, as we had a lot of interest in this course, and who knows, we might do a variation of this, maybe something a little bit more advanced in the coming future, and get more people involved. But I definitely think this online format was very, very valuable. And thank you again. And if you're interested in any other courses, please visit UNR Extension's Small Business Education Program website. And we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.